Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for this live stream event. My name's Rebecca. I'm the event planner of the Microsoft Reactor New York. Before we share our session and get into it, I just want to go through a couple of things with you all. Our code of conduct. The Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both you, our audience, and our presenters. So we just encourage you to engage in the chat, but just be mindful of your commentary and remain professional and on topic. So this session is recorded. It will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel after the session concludes. I'll drop the link to our YouTube channel if you're tuning in from another location stream, so you have that handy. If you've not been on a live stream through YouTube before and you want to interact, you do need to have an account and a channel set up. So if you haven't done so before, now is a perfect opportunity to get yourself set up. Which brings us to today's session. Let's bring our speakers up here. So today we are joined by Rishab and Gwen, who will introduce us to automated deployments on Azure with Terraform. This session will go for about an hour with time for questions throughout, so feel free to drop them into the chat. And we have some resources that we will share with you as well momentarily. Hey, y'all. Welcome, Gwen. Welcome, Rishab. Glad to have
Hi,
you both
everyone.
back.
Rebecca, thank you as always for the amazing introduction. Can't do these things without you. Hi, everyone. Hello, chat. See quite a bit of people already in here. We're joined once again by Rishabh. I think the last session we did together for the reactor was September, October?
Yeah. October?
Sometime around there. We were talking about, what did we talk about? I think we did containers. Docker?
Yeah, I think we did two part. Yeah. Containerized
right.
.NET. Crypto
Ticker
app.
app. Yeah,
Yep.
right. Yeah. So wow, that feels time goes by so fast. Today we're talking Terraform. Let's switch full screen here just so we can do a little bit of an intro. But yeah, everyone, hi, how's it going? Feel free to let us know where you're checking in the chat. Richard and I stream a lot, like almost every week. And today we just happen to have one of your. Would you consider Terraform to be one of your favorite technologies?
Sure. Yeah. I like it. I like it as an IAC tool a lot more than CloudFormation. I've been working with it for a year and it was a lot less pain to work with, especially because it's cloud agnostic. So that is just a huge plus when it comes to an IAC tool.
Yep, absolutely. It's probably the most popular one used as well. One of the most popular ones. There are plenty. I personally have no Terraform experience. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of infrastructure as code. I'm more of an ARM bicep sort of person. But infrastructure as code is something that is very, very important. One of the fundamental DevOps practices, one that we encourage beginners also to look into, or at any stage really, but especially beginners, because it's very useful. And I think it's also pretty cool that, you don't necessarily have to become a full stack developer to use something like infrastructure as code, but you're also using code to an extent that if you're interested in programming or code, you'll sort of like scratch that itch with something like infrastructure as code, right? We've got a lot of people in here. Very, very popular topic. I was telling Rishabh, like for Rishabh, from now on, we're just going to focus on DevOps sessions all the time. No other topic exists. So we got Boris in the chat here. Howdy, Jeff. How are you doing? Douglas is here as well. We have PA saying hello. Hello there. We got Luke saying howdy. Randy, hello from Toronto. Toronto.
Nice.
Rishabh, that's in your areas-ish. Hi, everyone. All things cloud with Nicholas. Hello, Nicholas. San Diego, California, Robbie. We got here Steve saying hello as well. Awesome, everyone. Yeah, so basically Rishabh is going to give us an introduction on Terraform and teach me and also teach the chat. You've been working with it for how long would you say? Like, tell us a little bit about your experience, how you got into it, how you learned, and all those kinds of things.
Sure. So back when I was still doing DevOps, mix of cloud ops and DevOps. So I was my title still said cloud ops engineer, and we recently were acquired, and like it was a year, I think, after acquisition, and we were moved to a bigger team. So me and my colleagues. And then there was a question of what IAC tool did we use in the past for everything that we have built so far. And it was CloudFormation, which is the AWS offering, because majority of our infrastructure was in AWS. And the question came because the team now is responsible for Azure infrastructure, AWS, and there was probability that we'll be managing GCP infrastructure too. So the decision was made. Everyone voted for Terraform. There were a few engineers that knew Terraform, but for others it was a learning curve, and that's how I started. Like,
kind of just like forced into it. Like you got to learn.
Yeah. So I was looking at the code base, and I gotta learn it. I was mentioned on pull request, even though I didn't know what anything like meant. So, and that's what I recommend is like looking at real world examples. Like it really helped me to learn it better, I think. And I would ask questions and stuff on pull request, like why we are doing it this way, because like I did an introductory course in Terraform and they did it this way, so I would know the answers by the end. And yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'll sit the Terraform Associate exam too because I'm learning it.
The certification.
The certification. So I set that with like a weeks of prep, and I failed it at the first attempt. So I sat it again after the weekend and I passed it. It turns out I was just missing like 2 or 3 pointers here and there. Yeah, and since then it's been a year. I've been using Terraform. I wrote custom modules as a DevOps engineer.
Cool.
So I also dove a bit deeper into Packer. So that's also one of Hashicorp's offering to create custom machine images. The two align like really well together. So yeah,
Very cool.
lot of experience with Terraform now. I won't say advanced. Like I'm still intermediate. Like I've seen
comfortable.
Yeah,
you've struggled with it, which I think is the most important part of it. Very cool. So you got a solid year of using it. I'm curious, like when y'all were deciding which tool to use, were there other options outside of Terraform that you were considering?
There was. I just don't remember. It's Pulumi or Pulumi?
Pulumi?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, that's a pretty popular one at the moment as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was just because, so I think out of 6 or 7 teammates, or that was how big the team was, 3 of them knew Terraform, and others didn't knew both. So neither Pulumi or not Terraform. So even having 3 people who know Terraform, I think, was an asset to us. And they only had like good things to talk about Terraform. So I think in that way, we knew which tool is going to win.
Yeah. It always helps when you have like someone who has an idea of what's going on versus like completely new, right? But that's awesome. Before we dive in, chat, just want again let us know any questions that you have. I'm very much a beginner to this. Rishabh is the subject matter expert here, and yeah, I think we dive in. I know you have like some code and a GitHub repo that we're going to share. I don't know if we shared that link already. We might be able to share it again. If Rebecca, if you can share it, awesome. Take your time, no rush. But there's a repo that Rishab's going to be working off of. But yeah, ready to dive in.
Sure.
Let me bring up your screen here. All right, chat. Let us know if that's big enough for y'all to see. Do you want us to zoom in, zoom, whatever it might be? Okay.
Yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit. That should be better. But yeah, so Ty, I know a few of you might already know me. Me and Gwen, we do a lot of live streams around DevOps, Linux, cloud, and yeah. So I'm Rishabh. I have recently joined Google, but I'm an ex-DevOps engineer.
Oh yeah, forgot to mention
engineer. that. So yeah, and you can find me on Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter along with Gwen. We do a lot of tweets about DevOps, Linux, and as I said, cloud. But yeah, let's dive into the code itself. So as the repo has been shared, we're going to deploy. So I wanted to keep things simple at the beginning, and we'll be deploying a simple like static site to Azure storage using Terraform. And you might ask, what is Terraform? And we have already mentioned that it's an infrastructure as code tool that lets you define the cloud and on-premise resources. So I was not aware initially of that you can do on-prem like infrastructure as code. And I'm like, what would you do? And then it made sense. You can do like VMware stuff. You can create modules for that. You can create same thing with Packer. You can create machine images for like VMware, ESXi, I think it's called. But yeah, so basically you define your infrastructure as code. So it's like the literal thing as I
It's a great name.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's not like it doesn't confuse you or anything. And yeah, so the language earlier, I think they used JSON only. So, but now it's HCL, and they recommend that you use HCL. So Hashicorp came with their own like notation and language and syntax. It's really similar to JSON, just somewhat easier when it comes to writing Terraform code. So we'll be using HCL, and we'll be using the Azure Provider. So the Azure Provider can be used to configure infrastructure in Azure, basically using ARM's API, or Azure Resource Manager API. And I've provided the link in the repo itself. You can read more about like what Azure Provider is basically. And I do believe sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, is a provider like where, like what's being managed, like what environment it's being managed in?
Yeah, so you could say that. So like Google has its own provider, AWS has its own provider, and yeah, Azure has its own. I'm pretty sure like all other clouds have their own. And I know Terraform like has worked, or like HashiCorp has worked with like Microsoft and with Google, with AWS to build these out. Yeah.
What do you use for like on-prem, or does it depend on like what kind of on-prem environment you got going on?
It depends, but you can call the provider. So I'm pretty sure like you would have a VMware one somewhere. I could be wrong, but
if you go down, hold on. If you go under these tiles, there's like a view more, because it says 36 providers there, right?
Yeah.
If you click on, actually,
there we go.
It was the one before, because these are modules. Oh, they're providers. Yeah, look, there's a bunch there. There's Cloud.
Yep, Alibaba Cloud. There's Azure Stack.
Ah, cool. Very cool. All right. Yeah. So okay, cool. So providers is essentially where things are being managed.
Yeah, so it's basically the definition of like when you make an API call, what will be done, right? And modules are built on top of these providers. So when I said in the beginning that I was working on some custom modules that our team needed, I was basically calling like Azure Provider and making stuff predefined. So let's say you don't need public IPs, right? And you don't need some settings on some, let's say, VM instance. And you don't want the user to call those settings anyway. So that's how you can control it through modules. So that's why I was referring to custom modules. But yeah, you can read about the Azure Provider on the link that's in the repo. We'll be using that for our demo today. And so there's already a folder called completed in the repo, but we'll be writing it from scratch now. And the Terraform files have an extension called .tf, which is pretty easy to remember, given the name Terraform. And usually the name goes main.tf. I don't know the story behind it, so if someone knows it, please feel free to like comment it down.
Well, it's called main.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Bicep now does main.bicep as well.
Nice.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I think so I know like other file types, and I'll talk about it a bit later because I want to make this like I don't want to make it complex right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, main does make sense when you add those other files.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
like
as I said,
when you're programming, you have like your main method.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And sorry if I don't look at the camera because like my camera is here and my screen is right here.
It's all right.
Yeah. So as I said, like we will be using the provider, which was Azure RM. So it's like that's the name of the provider. And you typically have a features flag where you define stuff. We'll leave it blank for now and we'll come back to it later. So you can define like versioning and stuff inside this. It's pretty similar if you've used like ARM or CloudFormation in the past. So you get to define like what version of CloudFormation you're using when you're bootstrapping stuff. And the first thing that we would need, so there are, yeah, so we would need a resource group where our resources would exist, knowing the Azure like infrastructure and how you manage that. We would need a storage account where our static site would exist. So resource group, storage account, and then you have the storage blob with the static site setting on. I think that's that's how I refer to it. But yeah, so I think 3 resources for now, and we'll see as we go ahead. So resource, and then you type in the name. Most of the time, like you will see how it's auto populating stuff, and this you can do this through. I think there's an extension called Terraform. Could be wrong, but I'll
And VS Code.
VS Code. Yeah.
Yeah, because we see someone asking useful Visual Studio extensions for developing and troubleshooting Terraform. Would you recommend? I know. So I know VS Code has like the Terraform extension that helps you sort of like autocomplete, so like syntax. But I don't necessarily know about troubleshooting ones.
I only use the Terraform one from Hashicorp.
The
So I
official
know
one.
in the
Mhm.
past there was this person who created a Hashicorp Terraform one, but it was not official, but it was better than the official.
Mhm.
And then I think now Hashicorp maintains that one too. So like they talk to the person or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And it's better. It's being maintained now. I only use that. I don't know if there are any other useful ones. I'm
Oh,
sure if
here's
you like.
interesting. There's an Azure Terraform extension by Microsoft in beta. I didn't know that. Very cool. Thank you, Caroline,
Nice.
for sharing that.
So here's the resource, the first resource as we talked about. So Azure RM is our provider, and we are building a resource group. And this, oh, sorry, that was my voice assistant. um, and this is basically the name of that resource, which you can define in the template itself to like, let's say we need this resource group again to reference, right? So this is called like a reference name. As you can see, if you like hover over it, it says reference name. There's this concept, and it's true within like CloudFormation too, like you can reference resources that are created before again in the template down the road when you're like writing more infrastructure, because we'll need resource group. So we'll just call it resource group to keep things simple. You could just name it RG as a resource group, and this will be the actual name of the resource group that would reside in Azure. So since this is a Terraform session, we'll name it Terraform Reactor, maybe. I think that's a good name. And so the location is another one of the properties that you need to define for resource group. We'll use East US because that's the nearest location. So that is our first resource. The second resource that I said was the Azure storage account. So we'll type in Azure RM and storage. Typing that right. Yep. Account. And then the reference name, you can name anything. We'll name it storage account just to make things simpler. So that's our storage account. And there are a few necessary properties that you need to define for a storage account. If you do like a Terraform, like we'll dive into this in more depth, but if you do like a Terraform apply and you haven't defined a required property, it'll fail. It'll just say, oh, you missed this out, right? So the name would be, I know that it needs to be unique. So storage, maybe reactor, Terraform, then some numbers. Yeah.
I wonder if that's like too long. We'll see. Give it a
yeah.
Give it a
if
try.
it errors
Let's
out,
see what happens. Yeah.
We can change that. So the resource group name, and I pressed enter. I don't know if it would say that again. Yeah. So you can see when I type resource group name and it says required. So that's what I was talking about. Like there are some properties that you need to define. Resource group name is this, right? So either you can put this or you can just reference whatever is the reference name. So we'll do that instead. So Azure, so this is the object that we want. And so Azure RM resource group dot resource group dot, so the property is name. So we'll just type in name. And similarly, we'll do that again for location. So Azure RM resource group dot location. Okay.
Here's a question for you. Does it matter in which order we write things or that we sort of declare them?
I don't think so. That's a good question. I usually, because I've always written like Terraform templates, like looking at documentation and stuff. I've always written them in the order that they were defined in the registry on Terraform. I've never tried like replacing things.
Right.
I think it should work.
Yes.
We can.
The reason why I ask is someone asked the difference between like something like Ansible, which I'm not sure. Do you have experience with Ansible?
No.
Ansible and something like Terraform, and like the biggest one is one of them being declarative and one of them being procedural. Whereas with Ansible, your approach is going to be like, it's like step, I want this and then this and then this and then this. Whereas with Terraform, I'm telling it like, I want you to sort of like, I'm declaring that this is what I want. Like how you make it, you know, like I'm assuming like the back end, like the provider does a lot of like which one actually goes first. But it's not like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
I don't think so, especially within like a resource. Like I know in the past like messed up or not messed up, like I would have a count here at the bottom instead of like at the top or something. I think I've done that and it worked. But again, like don't quote me on that.
Here's an hold on let me hook, so it's more end state focused, makes sense. Yeah, you're declaring what you want. You're saying I want this environment, go out and make it for me. Whereas Ansible, you have to take the step by step procedure, right?
And we'll jump into like states and stuff once we have our template ready.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Here we use Ansible to configure the application and SO. What is SO? I don't know what SO means, but Terraform to provision the infrastructure. There you go. There, yeah, because I've heard the comparison not necessarily made by. It's not like an apples to apples comparison there. It's like they're doing two different things. One is more configuration management, whereas one is all infrastructure as code. But anyway, keep going. Just wanted to answer those questions that were in the chat.
Oh, those are good questions. Yeah, so moving on to the more properties that you need to define for our storage account. So account here, we'll use standard, and you can refer to like Azure documentation for this. Storage accounts have different tiers, they have different replication types, they have different like account kind. So we are going to define that because it's needed. And as I said, replication type, we'll go with LRS because we don't need anything fancy now. Account kind would be storage v2, I think is the latest. Make sure I type that right. Account kind, storage v2. Yep. And so since I already said like we will be using this for hosting a static site, so we'll define static website, and you'll define the index document which is necessary, so that it knows where to point when it's hosting that static site. Index underscore document is equal to index.html, because that's the most generic name we can give. Resource. So we're done with the storage account. Now we need to create a blob which would hold our index.html, which would be served through static site, right? So
Blob
Azure,
container?
Yep.
Okay.
Resource, Azure RM underscore storage underscore blob. And then we'll name it, I don't know, reactor. So the name it. Oops. Okay.
Someone asks what LRS stands for. So LRS is locally redundant storage. It's essentially like the redundancy of like your actual data. It's locally. I think there's zone. There's G.
Yeah.
What's the G one?
GRS, geo-redundant.
Yeah. Okay. So it depends on like how important redundancy is for you, and like they're more expensive as you go through it, and then LRS being the cheapest option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Locally redundant storage. Yes. Thank you.
So
cool.
Yeah, with the blob. So again, we are defining some required properties. And again, you can either tell what the storage account name is, which is this, or you could reference it as we did with the resource group previously. So Azure RM storage account dot storage account, and the property that we are looking for is name. That goes there. Storage container name. So this one needs to be web, so that it knows that it's hosting a static site. And type of the container would be block. Type equal to. So type is block, and then content type is text, because it's holding our index.html. So type /HTML. And now you can also define source content here, which just makes, so because since I don't have like a template of a website that I want to host, we'll just define our content here. So let's say
it's right,
one
HTML straight into the
straight into the file itself, right? So
that's how you know we're not front-end developers at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, while you write some HTML, if you've deployed a static site to something like blob storage before, you're familiar with that. The $web is just like a fancy name of telling Azure, okay, this blob container, I want it to be specifically to host a static website, and then in the background, Azure knows like, okay, this one is $web. I know that this is a special container. This isn't like some sort of variable Rishabh came up with or anything like that. If you've done stuff like the Azure Resume Challenge or projects like similar to that. You're aware of that. Type yeah, everything else is pretty standard.
Yeah. And chat, yeah, let me know if like anything doesn't
Look,
make sense, because this one can be a tricky, like, oh, how are you like
yeah,
putting in variables?
Alf says need me for that for the front end. Yeah, we're backing
Oh,
people here.
yeah. You can see already our front end skills.
Look at that, amazing! This is going to be the most beautiful static site here.
Yep.
Could you tell me the NuGet package to get IntelliSense? If you're talking about the extension that Worship is using, it's just the official Terraform one, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Extensions. So it's this one. You can see like it'll have a little check mark from Hashicorp and says Hashicorp Terraform.
Yeah.
And the good thing about like VS Code is if you just go back, you can see recommended, and it's probably on the top if you don't have it installed.
Yeah, because I can tell from like the extension what you're working on. Yeah,
yep.
I love Visual Code. So capable.
Yep. So I think we are good for now. So we have 3 resources. Just going back through what we have built here with Terraform. First was a resource group because it's necessary. We need a group where we can host our resources, and that's how things are done in Azure. We have a storage account, which we will be using for our static website. And inside that storage account, we have a storage or a blob container, which we did say that it's a website that you'll be hosting with the HTML right into the Terraform file. You could have index.html here and you can upload that, but we'll use this. And I think we have everything
Caroline
covered.
says, I think you're missing. Is that an upside down exclamation? Oh, because of the Spanish, I think.
Yeah. I was going to type hi. I'm like, let's spice it up. So
how about a network resource? Are we missing a network resource, Richard?
Yeah, good good question. Not technically a network resource, but yes, we did need HTTPS traffic only because we want to make our site secure.
Right.
So I'm gonna add that to our storage account, and this is just a Boolean value, so you just say true or false. And we also need our blob to be accessible publicly. Otherwise, we won't be able to
site. Yeah.
So I'll add that, and you can see like shows up. And again, this is a Boolean, so we'll add true. Now I think it's just a matter of testing it out and trying to deploy it to Azure.
Oh, I like this. I like this call out here. With Terraform, you can then shove Cloudflare provider in front of it. Do some CDN stuff. Not CDN. What's the other one? It could be used for CDN. Yeah.
It can be. Cloudflare does CDN. You can also use, I think, I've used the Cloudflare provider itself. They have one for a lot of like firewall, and because they have a lot of security-based offerings too, like DDoS protection and stuff. But yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, you can make this advanced. Like you can host your own site using Terraform as a tool for infrastructure as code, and also like mix and match different providers to achieve what you want.
And you're not poking around different consoles and UIs and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Where are we at?
So I am already logged in to my Azure account, at least I think. Otherwise, we could do like a easy login. And I do have the Azure CLI installed. Now we just need to initiate the Terraform project. So like init, which initializes a Git repository. It's pretty similar to that. You just do Terraform init. Sure, I'm in the right directory. So cd demo.
I like your terminal. What is this? Oh my posh.
It's Oh my posh. Yep.
Well, you're gonna have to share your config later because I'm digging this.
Oh, okay.
This
It's
theme.
already on Gist.
Okay, cool.
I'll share it. Yeah.
All right.
It's
And
pretty cool.
if anyone in the chat is into like Windows terminal configs and stuff like that, Rishabh and I are very like we like to make it look pretty. So you'll have to drop the link, or maybe I'll go find it while you're doing this. It's on you said on your GitHub?
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I think I uploaded it as a Gist or Gist. I don't know how you pronounce that. Yep. Yeah, so we do a Terraform init, and it does. So you can see Terraform has been successfully initialized, and it also tells you like you can begin now by running Terraform Plan. So Terraform Plan basically tells you what all you have declared in your main.tf and what all resources would be created. So it's a good command to run before creating like actual resources. We'll do a Terraform plan and we get an error saying can only consist of lowercase letters and numbers and must be between 3 to 24 characters. So
It's
Gwen
too long.
was right.
Ha,
Yeah.
I knew it.
So how many characters are we over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I found your thingy. Here we go.
6 characters long. I just delete storage and we just delete one number, save it again, and we'll run the Terraform plan again. And it should work this time until unless there is another error down the file. Is the text readable? Like
I think
let
so.
me know if,
Chat, what do you think?
Let me know if you want me to zoom in. But yeah, here is our output. So we did a Terraform plan and it knows we are running a plan. So you see all these little plus icons. This means it'll add those resources or this infrastructure is going to be added. So I'll say, okay, resource group, it'll be added with the name of this and the location of this, basically everything that we defined here, right? And you can also see all of the properties now instead of just the ones that we defined. And it'll know that after it has done the Terraform
cool.
apply.
It says there, known after. Yep. Very cool.
And also the blob properties. Some network rules. It'll know everything after we do a deploy. And cool. the last resource was the blob container. And at the end, it says plan 3 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. So
this command, like you said, is essentially it's almost like not yet deploying, but like provisioning everything that it needs. Like it's like this is what's gonna everything you're gonna have once you actually do the deployment.
Exactly.
Okay.
This
cool.
this is just a spot check of okay, this is what I'm saying it to do, and once
before
we
actually
see
do
exactly. So as you can say, it says 3 to add, and we know like we created 3 resources, 0 to change, 0 to destroy because we haven't deployed anything yet. I'll say okay, yeah, this is fine, and you can also like get an output like here, so you could do a dash out, and it will save this to a file. We necessarily don't need it right now, so I would just do Terraform apply. 3 commands come into play. Terraform init would initialize your repository or the directory where your Terraform code is. Terraform plan would tell you what all it has, what all is going to be deployed before deploying, and then Terraform apply does it. So you can see it says 3 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. Do you want to perform these actions? Terraform will perform these actions described above only if we type yes. So we do want that. We'll type yes. Now what would happen is using the Azure RM provider, we'll start talking to that API and start deploying these resources. And you'll see step by step what it's doing.
I wanted to ask, when you have like the out, is that sort of like you can assign like a variable like, oh, I wanted to print like a storage key or like return me something that's from the deployment. Like you can use like the out option or like the out variable thing that you said.
So that, especially when you're using with Terraform Plan, you could basically have the output of the plan, not specifically variables. You can do that, but we didn't define any variables. And the same thing you can do is with Terraform Apply. So if, let's say, I know in some terminals, it depends on the setting, especially if your Terraform code is really long and you're deploying a lot of resources, your creation process is truncated. Like this, you won't see all of this because you cannot scroll up enough.
Yeah.
In those cases, an out is good. And you can see like the creation is complete, and it also has given us this URL.
Oh, URL. Cool.
And it says apply complete, resources 3 added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. So I'm just gonna head over to Azure. Just
I wanted to address this question while you log in here. It says, in which stage did you perform a login into an Azure account? Correct me if I'm wrong, Rishabh, but since you're using the Azure CLI, Terraform is utilizing that you're signed into an Azure account via the Azure CLI. And since you already signed in, you didn't have to do AZ login, right?
Yep.
So it uses the Azure CLI.
Yes. So I did. So the first command that I was going to run was AZ login before even doing Terraform init. You can, so you don't specifically need to log in through CLI. You can have your config defined in Terraform files. Again, that is some advanced topics. Because let's say we want this to be like a CI/CD thing, right? So you would need a pipeline. You would need credentials to be stored somewhere secure, like environment variables, where it can talk to the Azure ARM API to create those resources. And you can do that. I prefer like Azure CLI because it's easy. I don't have to deal with keys and stuff. And yeah, that was the reason of using like Azure CLI, and you just do an AZ login.
Yeah, it'll use that context. But then again, infrastructure as code, it's more useful when it is in a pipeline, and then you'd have to store your keys somewhere else, right? But in this example, since it's small and something that we're using just to mainly showcase more of like an introduction to Terraform versus like a CI/CD pipeline, that's why he used the CLI. Cool. I think we'll have more questions to answer towards the end, but like we're in your portal now.
Yep, and I'm just zooming in. So we know that the resource group was called Terraform Reactor. We do have our storage account here called Reactor Terraform with some digits at the end. And if we go down, look at our static website, we should have a URL that should say, hola, this is built with Terraform.
Nice.
Basically, now we have a static site that we build using Terraform. And as I said, we could have a better looking site. I'm not gonna lie. I just didn't know what template to pick. And the session is for Terraform, not front end. And
right.
We don't have Antonio on this session, but yeah.
If we so say you did have like an HTML file somewhere, like how would you in the Terraform code, how would you point that to the file instead of like the HTML?
So you would have that in your wrong icon. You would have that declared here, or like have an actual file called index.html, or even have a subdirectory saying front end or website, right? And then you would have to upload that file basically to the storage account. And you could do that through, again, like it's all documented here.
So you'd use Terraform to upload it and then reference it also once.
Oh yeah,
like from the Terraform code, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So instead of saying source content like this here,
yeah,
you would just tell it the file name.
But if you're the file name, so if you're uploading it to blob storage, do you need to reference the
Yeah.
blob storage address?
I don't think so. Like you just have to. You can reference the. Yeah, you can do the reference name. So, um, like we did with Azure RM storage account and storage account name. But I think it also works the other way.
Like, I'm assuming it's smart enough to know that, yeah, this file that's
Oh
in my
yeah.
directory, it's getting deployed as well. But like, you can reference it as just like, for example, if you had front end folder and then the file was index.html, you could just say it's in the front end folder index.html and it would know.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
There are some now advanced things I did want to talk with Terraform. So you might have noticed we only had main.tf, but it ended up creating Terraform log, a Terraform folder or a subdirectory, and a Terraform tf state file. So the state file, so you know how it says resources 3 added?
Yeah.
And if I do a Terraform plan again, let's do it. Terraform plan. It should know that these 3 resources are already deployed and are like live on Azure. And the way it does that is through the state file. So you see how it says no changes, infrastructure is up to date. So that's how it knows, okay, do I have to deploy these resources or do they already exist?
Similar to like a git status kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that state, so you see how it says refreshing state. All of this information is stored in this file. Things can go bad if you mess up with this file or delete this file. And I have done that. I have fiddled with it. And that's where comes the concept of having remote backends. So remote backend would store this file for you. And that it's really advanced topic, but it's really important, especially when you work in teams and you need to have you need to have a backend where the state file will be stored. Otherwise, it's really easy to mess up the infrastructure that's in prod or like is deployed, right? So you can use Azure Storage as a remote backend.
Yeah.
You can use for AWS, you can use S3 to store your state files. You can also use Hashicorp's cloud to store your state files. I think there's some catch with using Hashicorp. It's better, obviously, because it's their tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what this file is for. And this Terraform folder is created because we said to use Azure Provider or Azure RM Provider. So it downloads some artifacts to be able to use that API or that provider to use the API. Similarly, if like we had, let's say, another provider, for example, Cloudflare, as we saw that comment in the chat, it will also download the details for that one too. But yeah, those are some things that are like nice to have, especially remote backend. And I think I still have like 5 minutes before like we jump into some questions. I do want to point out that you can make this better with having variables instead of like actually putting the
like
values.
the declaring the value of the name or
values.
whatever in there. Yeah.
Yep. You can also have a separate file for providers. So let's say we are using multiple providers and it gets hard because let's say in a perfect scenario where you're defining infrastructure as code using Terraform in a team of 8 people and you have to deploy like 20 VMs and some other resource, so you need VPCs and all that stuff. The main.tf will get huge. So what you can do is if you just create a new file named provider.tf and take out this chunk of code and have it there. Save this. And the other thing I want to do is, so let's say instead of using this, use var dot or whatever we want to name the variable. So rg dash name, just to keep it easy, right? The same thing for locations. Let's say var dot rg location, maybe location, because I don't think we have any other
Like locations.
yeah, like
Mhm.
it will be same, right, across the code base here. Yeah, and similarly you can do this for like reactor or whatever
Yeah,
other
the
resource you
names are
have.
you're
And yeah,
essentially abstracting. So
mhm,
the goal is for you to ideally modify less the main.tf and then more
yeah,
work with like where you're actually like putting your variables in. So that would be your provider one.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you
okay.
can already see. So just to pace things a bit up.
Mhm.
So if you go into the repo and you can look at this too, there is variables.tf. So that's how you define your variables. Um, so we already defined variable rg name,
Mhm.
and we also defined the location variable. You can give it a description saying that whatever it's the purpose of the variable is.
Cool.
And I think you can also, yeah, you can also have a default value for it.
Mhm.
Um, Making sure like it gets something assigned. I usually don't recommend it because then people don't know what they assigned the value for.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can have variables. So let's copy this because we use these two to so main.tf. The other file we need is variables.tf, and you define those two. Now either you can do it through command line, or the way I prefer is having a tfvar file. So this is also an extension of Terraform, but as you can see, it has vars at back, which means
Mhm.
variables. And it's really similar to like .env file. So you have a variable and then you have the
Oh,
assigned
like a
value
key
for it.
value pair kind of thing.
Yeah,
So this is instead of doing like Terraform apply dash dash resource group providing the value dash dash whatever,
oh
you're
yes,
just declare like putting them in here, and then it's you're telling Terraform, oh, grab the files, grab the variables from the TFRs. This is what you're going to be working with.
exactly. So
Cool.
yeah, you can do that too. So that's what I meant with CLI. So you could do Terraform apply dash dash var and then define location, define
Hmm. Like you pass it
RG
in through the
name.
command
Yeah,
line. Hmm.
yeah. And you can also do through environment variables. You can also do it this way. I prefer it through this because it's easier.
Hmm.
And I often change these, so it's I don't have to like I would have like 2 or 3 files. So let's
Yeah.
say dev.tfvars,
Prod. Yeah. Cool.
prod.tfvars.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can specify that during your Terraform apply.
Yeah, because if you're passing it in that command line, I could see how it could get really long. Like one command would
Yes.
get like pretty long. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So this was some advanced Terraform stuff.
Mhm.
I do wish I could do like the remote backend. It's really cool. So that your
We'll
state
have
is
to do another
understood.
session at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is Terraform Destroy, which basically would destroy all the resources that we have created using main.tf. And now I think it'll be an issue because we changed main.tf.
yeah,
Um, so let's see what it does. Oops, I missed an A.
forgot the A.
Oh, so it did recognize. Oh, because we didn't change the TF state file. So the TF state is still it still knows that there were 3 resources that were defined and were
Mhm.
deployed to Azure. It knows that okay, I need to destroy those 3. But yeah, so if the TF state file changes, yeah, you'll need to either delete resources manually,
Mhm.
or you would like have to tinker it with manually going into the portal, which we don't want. That's the whole point of using infrastructure as code. If
Or you
we
could do
say,
a easy. Like the good thing about Azure is you could just delete a resource group, whereas AWS doesn't necessarily have a straightforward way of doing it. I don't know GCP, the CLI has like a project, like you can just remove the project or something.
Yeah. So while it's destroying the cool site that we created, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat.
Yeah, let me go back up there, make sure we haven't missed anything. But is there a program to convert Azure management JSON ARM into Terraform code? I don't. Something that maybe there is.
There could be. I've seen in the past. So I did work with. So when I learned Terraform, I declared it using JSON, and then our team was like, Hashicorp recommends HCL. Templates we are in HCL. So I did find a tool that like converted the JSON
too.
I don't know if there is one for ARM to HCL.
Let's take a look here. Sorry, but how do you import the JSON for the Posh thing? Windows Terminal. If you use Windows Terminal, there's a little setting that you can access the JSON there. Scott Hanselman has a very good. If you Google Scott Hanselman on my Posh, he has a very good tutorial on it.
Yeah, there's like a. Yeah, he has two of them. There's like a 16-minute one. It's really good.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of YouTube videos. Maybe I'll do one about mine. Let's see. I don't know if we missed a lot of these on the top here. Do you have any experience with Salt? Someone asks the difference between Salt, Ansible, and Terraform. We discussed a little bit about Ansible and Terraform. I don't think I've ever used Salt, so I wouldn't really know.
Me neither.
A difference there too. I think we got all of these here. Let's take a look. Clarice says, awesome session. Thank you for that. Rishabh, thank you very much for your session here. You can also use Terraform import existing Azure infra.
Yeah, we should definitely do like an advanced Terraform one. But yeah.
We another one I think people might find interesting is like actually putting Terraform files into a pipeline.
Oh yeah, I would love to like have. Yeah, we could utilize GitHub Actions to deploy our infrastructure.
Yeah, that'd be a cool one too. Did this finish? Yeah, it looks like it finished. Destroy complete.
Yep. So if we go back, there we go. So our beautiful site was deleted. I'm hoping the same with the resource group. And it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's gone. Awesome. I think we've covered everything. I got the majority of the questions. Luke says thank you. All Things Cloud with Nicholas says thank you guys. Please do another session. Hey, we live stream every single week, pretty much. Sometimes we just talk about like what our weeks have been up to. Sometimes we do technical stuff. Sometimes we rant about video cards being too expensive. You never know. But if you follow us on Twitter, Rishabh's Twitter is right there, Rishabh K7, and then mine is made by GPS. You can keep up to date with sessions that we do. We plan on doing more. So absolutely. Thank everyone for hanging out with us. I know Rebecca is going to hop on for a little bit, talk about the next session that I have planned for February 15th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Is that PT? PT specific, right?
Yeah, there should be an S in between there for standard.
Yeah. I'm introduction to containers in Azure with Docker. We're doing some Docker, some Azure container registry, some Azure container instances stuff for that session. Very cool. That's next week. Got to go start prepping for that one. But yeah, that's going to be next week, everyone. So we're doing a Linux focus month. I've been doing a lot of Bash content as well. We're big fans of Linux here.
And I dropped it in the chat a little bit earlier, but our YouTube channel, which I just found out today, this is like a massive message. Maybe I'll just put that whole big chunk up there. But yeah, we had to change our account to being a business account or something recently. And for a long time, it was like just a bunch of garbled numbers and letters, but we just passed our 6-month mark. So now we are back to having a reactor handle, and I'm very excited about it. So it makes it a lot easier. Now you just type in
Microsoft Reactor 1.
Yeah, that part I don't like the one part. I guess because we had the
Microsoft Reactor.
Maybe because that's what we had before we went to the business account. They just can't use the same one.
Well,
it's like
now that Rishabh works at Google, maybe he can help us fix our YouTube URL.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no,
but,
that'd be good. We should, there should be like a collab of like comparing and contrasting Microsoft and Google products.
We want to do, maybe I'm thinking, Rishabh, we could probably do some like container and Kubernetes kind of stuff, given that, Kubernetes came from Google. But there's a lot of like, work on the Azure side. Like you think of like container apps and stuff like that does stuff with Kubernetes. So we could probably put together a session around that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're not competition. At least Rishabh and I are not. We're it's not our job to like persuade people to go to either one. We're just like, hey, come learn cloud with us, right?
Yeah, there's just so many fun things out there, and some have different benefits than others. So
exactly,
really good to showcase it all. Here's my last plug, and then we'll let you all go. Again, we have that Reactor YouTube. Check us out. We're on Twitter as well. Normally, we just post some like one-off events here or there, but you can message us, and we'll respond. We temporarily. Our website is just a frozen page because we had to redo it all. But keep an eye. You can star MicrosoftReactor.com, and one day soon, hopefully, it'll be back up and running. And if you're not a part of the Reactor crew, we are on Meetup. We have 12 physical locations. One day soon, we hope to go to a hybrid scenario where we have in person as well as these virtuals. I know. I'm like, I miss people. Come on, let's have like some networking FaceTime. But yeah, in the interim, pick a Microsoft Reactor near you, like time zone wise, and check out that calendar. We've always got a bunch of things coming out. And thank you, Gwyn. Thank you, Rishabh. This was fantastic. Another great session. We had so many like comments in the chat and engagement. Yeah. All right, all.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.